Our next witness is Mr. Stephen Richardson. He will introduce himself, but I have to say that my dad used to use a term, pillar of the community, someone who is really essential to the support of any community, literally a pillar, meaning someone who holds the place up. Steve Richardson is one of those people from Patton, Maine. We're delighted you made the trip to join us today. Stephen Richardson.
Thank you very much, Senator King. Before I start, I would just encourage Ranking Member Daines to ask you to bring a 1-pound bag of fiddleheads back to him. It's not the foraging that is so much fun, it's the eating. So, again, thank you both and the members of this distinguished subcommittee on national parks. I am honored and humbled to be with you today to discuss the critical legislation that you are considering for Katahdin Woods and Waters National Monument. But before I start, I need to offer my sincere appreciation to Senator Angus King and Senator Susan Collins for their support and advocacy for Maine and Katahdin Woods and Waters National Monument specifically. Since its creation in August of 2016, our senators have worked diligently through the appropriations process to improve the monument, increase staffing, protect its resources, and make it more accessible to visitors. So thank you very much. Senator King has introduced me for the most part. I was born in Patton. I now live at Shin Pond, which is just 10 miles away. I live in the northern part of the monument area. In addition to what you've heard about me, I also am a very silent partner with my son, Nathan, who successfully runs the family hardware, lumberyard, greenhouse, etc. in Patton. And I look forward today to provide testimony on S-4784, the Katahdin Woods and Waters National Monument Act, which is sponsored by Chairman King and co-sponsored by Senator Collins. To me, this legislation is about the future. It's about making it possible for our kids to stay in the region and thus in Maine. Millinocket, a town south of the monument, was once home to the largest paper mill in the world. Families made their living in the woods and in the mills, and there were good jobs with benefits for anyone willing to work hard. But that changed through no fault of the good men and women of the Katahdin region. Our communities have had to adapt to a new reality and take new approaches to our natural resources and our economy. The monument is an important part of that transition. It is a beacon of hope, drawing new people, more visitors, and increased investment to our communities, all the while protecting a very special place for the enjoyment of generations to come. The legislation before you does three things. First, it allows the National Park Service to acquire land from willing sellers to improve access to the monument. Second, it allows the National Park Service to work collaboratively with local communities to secure space for headquarters, staff housing, visitor contact stations, and other important facilities in gateway communities. And third, it protects and preserves access for traditional activities, including hunting, fishing, snowmobiling, and the gathering of those all-important fiddleheads. When the monument was created, we all knew that the access from the south would benefit towns such as Millinocket, East Millinocket, and Medway, so that visitors there could enter the monument more easily, and the economic benefits of visitation would be spread more evenly. Southern access is imperative to those gateway communities and for the monument's continued growth and development. Senators King and Collins have recognized the need and found a solution that is broadly supported in the region and statewide. When it was created, Katahdin Woods and Waters also came with a promise. Private philanthropy would ensure the monument would get off to a good start by investing private dollars into infrastructure. That promise, I'm proud to say, has been kept. There is a $3 million endowment along with annual private funding to offset operational costs to the National Park Service. Over $20 million has been raised from donors to construct a new visitors contact center inside the monument. and more than $8 million philanthropic dollars have been invested to improve roads, bridges, trails, scenic views, and campsites. Katahdin Woods and Waters has built incredible momentum because of a unique and successful partnership between local communities, philanthropic partners, and the National Park Service. Friends of Katahdin Woods and Waters has developed the Katahdin Learning Project, where staff leadership, local schools and educators, and the National Park Service have combined to provide 9,000 students the opportunity for outdoor learning, place-based and serviced learning projects, and trail crew opportunities. To date, 1,600 young people have visited the monument, connecting them with nature and the history of the area. This legislation you're considering is all about connecting all people with the monument. The monument is paying off for the communities in the region. As a personal story, my son recognized that with the creation of the monument, our store had an opportunity to serve new types of customers. It was a risk, but he believed that once people learned about the beautiful and the history of our region and about the monument, they would come. He began to stock kayaks, canoes, paddleboards, camping gear, and the like. I'm happy today to say that he was correct. The store has experienced minimum 20% year-over-year increases over the past 6 years. This is true for many businesses in the Katahdin region, as more people have come to take advantage of what is offered. And some visitors have luckily become full-time residents. To summarize, there is a need in our region to improve access to Katahdin Woods and Waters. The legislation from Senators King and Collins protects traditional recreational uses, allows the National Park Service to work with willing sellers, promotes greater investment in our region, and will help businesses and working people. I appreciate their support on this matter and ongoing support for the monument, and hope the Senate will support this bill as well. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, and thank you for the opportunity to tell the story of Katahdin Woods and Waters National Monument and what it means to my community and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richardson. Let me begin with some questions generally. And Mr. Caldwell, I understand that the importance that our working forests have access, ability to get their woods out. Can you talk about how the Park Service deals with this issue in other parts of the country to have the safe cohabitation, if you will, of visitors and the forest products industry?
Sure. Well, certainly at Katahdin Woods, it's great to see you here, sir. We honor all the agreements that we have, and I think you alluded to that earlier when you identified even the signs in the website. But we're authorized elsewhere in the country for commercial use, say in places, parts of the Foothills Parkway, the Smokies, or Delaware Water Gap, for example. The Park Service has balanced those needs with those commercial uses versus the needs of the visitors on those roads. So it is something that we do elsewhere when we have those authorizations in places similar to Katahdin Woods.
Thank you. I look forward to working with you on that issue.
Thank you.
Mr. Shafroth, you outlined this in your remarks, and I mentioned it in my response. But I think the important fact for us here is the matching that you do. Can you expand on that a little bit? What can we look forward to in terms of a return on this investment that is proposed in this bill?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. Well, I would say 60 or 70% of my job, Mr. Chairman, is fundraising. I'm at the point of the spear with a lot of corporations and foundations, individuals, families, and I can tell you the dynamic that exists when people are considering making a meaningful gift to the National Parks Foundation has a lot to do with, well, who else is going to be in with me on this? Is the federal government a part of this transaction or this project? Do you have other donors that are lined up? And very few people want to fund 100% of something. And so when I can acknowledge in the course of those conversations that, yeah, we were able to put $250,000 of our federal appropriation dollars into this program or project, it just shifts the likelihood that we're going to get a grant. And so this is the first time in our 55-year history, this last 4 years, that we've actually had financial resources from the federal government to spend. And so part of this process for us has been figuring out the relationships with the Park Service and making sure that we're aligned with them, both nationally and in the local community. But it's turned out to, I would say we're hitting our stride in a meaningful way. And I think even though we're somewhere at like a, for every dollar that we're provided, we're at $1.4 or something like that in terms of the match. I think we can see an opportunity to grow that going forward. And I think there's a huge amount of demand out there, especially given the shortfall of other federal dollars available for parks.
I have a particularly vivid story about the power of matching. I used to work for public broadcasting in Maine, and you have the pledge breaks, and people look at the camera and say, new members, if you match. For some reason, it came into my head one night when I was looking at the camera, and I said, I will personally match all new members of $100 or whatever it was. It was the biggest calls they ever got. And it was so, and so the head of the station the next day said, Angus, you don't really have to do that. I said, yes, I do. I made a promise, but I won't tell you what it cost me, but it was significant. All of my friends called in and picked my pocket that night. Mr. Richardson, you've been in the region your whole life, and you remember, as I do, that there was a lot of controversy at the time of the creation of the monument, and there was opposition, and people were concerned about the impacts in the community. Have attitudes changed? How has the existence of the monument affected the community's acceptance of it?
Thank you. I would say that attitudes have changed. I won't say that everybody is in favor. I think we're down to now 2 no parks for Maine signs in our communities, whereas before we had 20, 30, maybe more. Just an anecdote. There was one gentleman on the edge of the Swiftbrook Road that is the entrance for the monument on the northern end. During the lead up to the 2016 proclamation, he had mega signs on his doorway, in his driveway, et cetera, and he would go to meetings and protest, et cetera, et cetera.
I remember those meetings.
Yep. And not too long ago, it was this summer, there was an activity in the Sherman area. And one of EFI's people who were down there, this
Those are the people that were involved with the monument.
Correct. Elliottsville Foundation people. This gentleman tapped on the lady's shoulder, and he said, I have to say, I approve of the park. He calls it a park, not a monument, but he called it a park. There's no signs on his lawn anymore. And I'm not saying that's the same thing that happens all over the area, but there's general acceptance. Even those that were vocally opposed, you don't hear anything. They either don't say anything or they're quietly approving. So,
As you touched on this with regard to the personal experience of the store in Patton,
Yep.
is there a general consensus in the business community that the monument has been a positive in terms of the economy?
yes, there is. The only thing that I would qualify that with is that I think a lot of the uptick in the business community has been because of COVID. We've had a nation now that has turned to the outdoors rather than sitting home and looking at the screen, so to speak. And that has helped, and that's going to help the national parks all over this country. It has helped businesses because we have people every week. Last week I talked to a gentleman from West Virginia and another one from Texas that was in northern Maine, and I'm sure they would have never been there if it weren't for the fact that they now are outdoors, they're trying to find places to go, and thank goodness they're picking our area.
One final question.
Yep.
This bill provides access to the south. This will have the effect, as I see it, of spreading the benefits in terms of the economy to those southern communities as well as up in your region.
That is correct. If you were coming north and you were to get off in the Millinocket, East Millinocket, Medway area, and assume that you can access the park from there, you still have to drive back to the interstate, come north 20 miles and go into the monument, or go up the highway, local highway, again, another 20 miles to get there. So, yes, once those people know that they can access the monument from the southern district, they will probably stay there for the most part and spend their money. So it just has to have a tremendous positive effect on the, on those communities.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Richardson.